Will the next generation of Army officer be monomaths or polymaths? That's to say, will they focus on studying one specific area of expertise, or will they study across a broad range and become generalists on how they approach education? Stay tuned, for that's what we'll be discussing on this episode of the Evolving Warfighter. Before we get too far into this conversation, we're going to take a moment to define two key terms. And those terms are monomath and polymath. Monomath is an individual that focuses on one specific academic discipline. They might become an expert in one specific field. For this reason, a monomath attempts to solve the problems they're faced with their own knowledge and ability within inside the scope of their specific expertise. The other term is a polymath. And a polymath is an individual that studies various different types of academic fields. Typically, they have a more organic approach to learning, as they have a topic in mind and they'll jump from one academic field to another, chasing the truth or the answer to a specific problem. For this reason, polymaths might be more gifted in learning because they're willing to cross boundaries and not be trapped within single academic approaches. So the question at hand is, should the next generation of military leaders focus on being monomaths or experts in particular fields, or being polymaths, more generalists that could be used across several different fields? One phrase that we often hear in the military is think outside the box. But the question is, how does the box get formed in the first place, and how can we test its limits? So let's examine that question. The concept of having a box is probably much older than many people believe. Most likely it dates back to the Industrial Revolution. During the Industrial Revolution, it was found that if workers focus on a specific step in an assembly line, they can gain much mastery at that one specific piece of the larger whole. By doing so, they became experts and specialists in that one specific step. And by assembling several different experts for the various different steps of a manufacturing process, it was determined that the overall productivity of society drastically improved. So instead of giving a person a task to build a table, you might give a person a task of just making table legs. And they would become masters of building table legs over the course and period of time. However, it was noted that the more that people focused on a specific task, or the more they became an expert at their one specific function, the less they had the ability to take that whole process from beginning to the end. So while the skill of expertise advances the art of making that one specific piece, it can deaden the ability to see the whole process as a whole and take the process from start to finish. As society greatly benefited by the increased productivity of specialization, several different institutions were developed to increase the number of specialists inside our society. And that's where we get to our modern education system and approaches to learning. You can see this increased drive for specialization inside our society every time you hear a parent ask a child, what do they want to be when they grow up? Typically, this question is framed in terms of the child answering with a specific profession in mind. A lot of cases you can even hear parents ask follow-on questions saying, what type of X, to further increase the specialization of the child while picking a profession for the future, because we understand in our society that the most specialized of jobs in our society tend to provide the most resources or salaries to individuals. If there's any question at all about whether our society rewards specializations, especially high-level specializations, it can be answered by the high salaries of individuals like defense attorneys and brain surgeries. Society is willing to pay a significant amount of money for highly specialized and expert individuals. However, just because experts provide a lot of productivity to society doesn't mean that producing expert soldiers is the key to produce success on the modern battlefield. We've probably all heard the phrase, a jack of all trades and master of none. In modern usage, we tend to use this as an individual that's gifted in several different skills or areas, but he's not really a master or an expert in any one of them. However, the original origins of this phrase may have included another verse. Being a jack of all trades and master of none is often better than the master of one. We can draw a significantly different meaning out of the phrase when we look at it with this extra line. It's referring to a polymath, or an individual that has several different interests and tends to study across several different academic fields, and may follow their interests from one subject area to another. It is this individual's willingness to cross from one academic field or specialty into the other that might provide a true advantage of the polymath. They can learn the various different problem-solving methods used in each academic discipline and use those problem-solving methods to apply them in a unique concept. In this way, polymaths have a tendency to drive innovations in a way that monomaths simply cannot. To test the different approaches in solving a problem, I once conducted an experiment on a local college campus. I asked several professors what they would do to prevent local Afghan villagers from joining the Taliban. As I asked the religious scholar, they said the solution for this problem was found in better education, because they believed that the high rates of illiteracy caused the villagers to turn to Taliban leaders instead of reading religious documents firsthand. And he believed that they had a better education system, they might turn away from the Taliban. As I asked the economics professor, they basically said it's due to poor economy in the area. So if we created jobs and opportunities that were more enticing than what the Taliban was offering to these villagers, they would turn to these other economic sources. As I continued on and asked various different professors what the possible solutions to this problem was, I found that they naturally defaulted back to their own area of specialty. This might be caused by two separate reasons. The first is, having been a monomath or a specialist, you tend to have the most knowledge in your particular field. So when you're presented with a problem, you're most likely to default back to the area where you're strongest academically to attempt to solve this problem. Another reason they may default back to their own specialty is they have highly respected credentials in their own specific specialty. For this reason, they can use their credentials to pull power and authority while presenting a solution. When I asked the true polymath this question about solving the problem with villagers joining the Taliban, I was simply overwhelmed by the amount of suggestions that he had to solve the problem. And just like the best way to approach defeating your enemy on the battlefield, he provided a multi-pronged approach. Essentially, he suggested several different answers to the problem that may possibly be factoring into this larger complex issue. Assuming that some of these approaches would likely fail, the other approaches would likely add to their effect of each other and reinforce each other, just like a multi-pronged attack on the battlefield. So polymaths may present an interesting solution for leadership on the battlefield because they may simply come up with more possible solutions to address the very complex problems on the modern battlefield. We simply do not have the time or ability to simplify the battlefield enough that we could conduct scientific experiments to test one specific hypothesis at the time. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's not a need for specialists inside the military. In fact, there are several different weapon platforms and complex processes like cyber warfare that may require experts to spend years of their life dedicated to a single study of a single field or weapons platform to take the best advantage of that skill set on the battlefield. However, just because we need specialists or monomaths on the battlefield doesn't mean we couldn't enhance our performance through the addition of polymathic individuals. In many ways, you could say that the Army has already optimized its design for the addition of polymaths. If you look at any battalion staff or higher, you can see that staff officers are expert specialists in their own unique field. However, commanders have the ability to take the advice from all these different experts, take their courses of actions that they recommend, sort them, break them down, reorganize them into a plan that he or she thinks would successfully address the needs on the battlefield. Inserting polymaths in the roles of commanders may greatly enhance the ability of the United States Army. And adding polymaths, or at least a polymathic approach inside military leaders, may not be as difficult as it may seem. Many Army officers already have college degrees that do not align with their military specialties. So while this might not make them true polymaths, it at least makes them multidisciplined. And if you ask the question, does every soldier have a hobby? You might see that soldiers, or individuals in general, are naturally polymathic. We have a tendency in our education system to be forced into a specific degree field or academic field of study. It may be a more natural state of humans just to be more polymathic in their approach to learning. So adding polymath to the military may be as simple as just asking individuals to go back to their more organic style of learning and to follow their interests wherever it may lead. Now, I won't say that adding polymaths to the U.S. military wouldn't come without some significant difficulty. The biggest difficulty would probably be personnel management. There's no structure inside the military that was designed specifically for polymaths, and it would be very difficult to have career planning for these type of individuals. Almost every unit inside the military was built to have specific monomaths or specialists assigned in various different numbers and combinations. By having polymaths within inside your formation and the interests, abilities, and skills of these polymaths varying to one degree or another, it would be difficult to assign these individuals appropriate roles throughout our formation and truly optimize the use of their polymathic abilities. While this is a problem that would need to be overcome, I would assert that the benefits of adding polymaths inside our formation far outweigh the hardships in terms of personnel management. We tend to remember polymaths in our society because of their strong ability to drive innovation. Some great examples of this would include individuals like Leonardo da Vinci, modern examples like Steve Jobs, or military examples like General Blackjack Pershing. These individuals bring creativity to society to drive innovation and change the way we really view the world. And it might be this skill, the addition of polymaths, that provides us the edge to maintain and increase our dominance on the modern battlefield. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. I published an article on this topic on the website From the Green Notebook. I invite every military leader to take a look at this rich resource for self-development materials and articles that will broaden your knowledge on the military in general. As always, I invite you to subscribe to the Evolving Warfighter for more videos on the topic of Army self-development and military history. Until next time, focus on your self-development so we can ensure that we can dominate the modern battlefield.